Welcome back. I'm excited to have my friend Karen Farfan here. We're going to spend a day filming episode after episode of building her YouTube channel. But we're starting with a video kind of out of order. We're talking about outsourcing just for a minute because I know a lot of viewers on the channel love to know why I hire people in the Philippines. And so we're going to start there. There's a specific reason why just the Philippines, and we'll dive into that in this episode.
So can you tell me why the Philippines? Why not South America? Why not India?
Yeah,
Why did you
there's
choose?
great people all over the planet. I love, everywhere I've gone, I find people that I love. But there's so many great advantages to the Philippines. They're a developing nation in the furthest extent of the word, meaning I can hire somebody there for $450 a month that is very highly educated and skilled. They've got a computer, they've got internet. Their communication is fantastic, the way that they speak English. There's just so many advantages. I can trust them. They're people that I can trust, that they're, on one hand, like, I look for entrepreneurial qualities, yet I can train them everything and share all my secrets, and they're not going to be my competitor.
They're very humble also, right? They're very humble and appreciative of the opportunity that you're giving them.
Yeah, in fact, if I'll show you this picture that I took, because I've been hiring people in the Philippines for 9.5 years. Never met them in person, but I just went over last November, and this is the night that we all met. This was a kind of a fancy buffet, delicious actually. So I eat whole food, plant-based, and like I only went to this section, and then after I was full, I realized that I'd only been to a third of the restaurant. Anyway, meeting my team for the first time was
How was that?
It was really touching. My project manager came and met me. That's his sister. They're the only two that had known each other beforehand. These two are brothers actually. So there's two that have known each other, but otherwise they work from their homes. So I was kind of nervous, like, are we going to get along? Is it going to just be awkward sitting there all together? But all the guys sat here, all the women sat here, and we're chit-chatting and talking about clients and things that we'd worked with and having laughs. And I just had this kind of a wave of emotion hit me of gratitude, and of them grateful to me for providing them jobs, and it's a really neat experience.
Nice. And how do you build that trust with your team? Because you met them for the first time after how many years?
Yeah, it takes time, but really I don't micromanage them as far as hours. I tell them, put in 8 hours a day. You get to control your schedule. But I give them a very specific system to follow. And, if it's editing, then I'll see a certain number of edited videos come out each day. And as long as there's consistency in their work, and they're open with communication with me, just more and more trust gets built. And I get to see, like, what I really love is when my team comes to me with ideas of, there's kind of been a bottleneck here. And if they kind of discover a problem and they can provide a solution, I just realize, man, you guys are loyal. And I've seen lots of loyalty like that. And I've also seen where one of my project managers, I now call him my system creator because he creates lots of systems for me in our company. He noticed two of our team members who were doing great work, but he thought, I think this one would do better as a thumbnail designer, and I think this one would do better as an editor. What if we had them switch roles? And I'm like, let's give it a try. And they're both happier doing
what they're good at.
Yeah. So it's developed over time to where we've got that type of dynamic.
Yeah.
Really, when just the culture in the Philippines is they really want to do a good job. They really want their boss to be pleased with them. And if they make a mistake, they'll quiet and they'll just not say anything. And so what I've learned to do is, we'll just use editing a video as an example. So if that's the project they're working on, I give them a project, give them all the footage, and they edit it. I tell them, this is how I want you to edit it, create it, like this other video here. They'll send it back to me, and I'll review it. I'm not expecting it to be perfect, but I'll see what they've done. Maybe they're 80% of the way there. And I'll go through and point, okay, yep, you did this right, this is really good, I like what you did here. Here's some other things that you can do. If you just shorten this, tighten this up a little, so I'll give them feedback and give them another chance to go through and improve it. And they'll come back, maybe now it's 90% of the way there. So as long as I'm patient and I can give them feedback, eventually it'll get up to that 100%. And then the next time I give them a similar video editing project, they'll get a lot closer that time. And eventually get to the point where I just trust them. I don't have to review it anymore on my own because they've done it so much. They've learned, they've adapted, they've listened to what I've said. So it's a process. But to now have a team, I've got 14 full-time members in the Philippines that I'll just send everything their way, and I don't have to oversee it anymore. It's
That's
awesome.
great, yeah. So you don't have the language barrier, you have loyalty. How much do you pay for this?
On average, it's about $450 per month per team member. So some of my team members that have been longer, they've gotten pay raises and things, but
But
yeah.
it starts at $450.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good. They're helping you, and then you're helping changing their lives. Is there specific requirements that you ask for your team members? College degree?
No. What I do is I'll look at their experience. I actually don't like a resume, so if they send me their resume, I'm never going to look at it. But what I have them do is send in a video application. So I'll send them a video of myself. So I'll just pull out my phone. I'll film a selfie video talking to them for about 5 minutes and say, this is what I'm looking for. And this, introducing them to me and my company and tell them what I'm looking for. And then I say, I want you to send a video back to me. So if you just pull out your phone, talk to your camera, it doesn't have to be good video production quality. Let me know what your experience is and why you want to work for my company. And that's been extremely helpful in really just trying to build a connection with somebody on the other side of the planet, because I don't even talk to them on the phone. We talked about I don't like phone calls. They don't like phone calls either. So we'll email, we'll use Voxer, but video communication like that's actually very helpful.
Yeah.
And so that's how I have them apply, and then I'll give them a trial assignment. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to hire you. This first week is just a trial period just to make sure that we work well together, and I'll pay you. If it doesn't work out, you'll still get paid for this week. But otherwise, I hope to have you work for me for many, many years. And I actually had that experience where I hired a writer who just didn't have the ability that I thought she did. She actually was with me for a few weeks. I paid her for it. I said, I apologize. I'm just going to need to find somebody else that can do these tasks. And she was gracious and said, yeah, I understand, all the best. And then I hired a different writer who's on my team now. So
That's great. I love the new way of hiring people, because anyone can make up a resume, right? You can write, but with the video, you can tell the essence of the person too,
mm-hmm.
and kind of see if it's a match or not in the week trial.
So a question I have for you
Yeah.
is if you could give yourself an extra 8 hours in the day, what tasks would you do more than what you're already doing?
I'm a like lifetime learner. I love to learn, so I'll keep learning. I'll keep traveling. I love culture. I love connecting with people, so I'll be doing a lot more than that.
So I wonder how you could use outsourcing then, because you can hire somebody,
Yeah.
$450 a month.
Yeah, if I can hire anyone that can do what I eventually will be doing, will be the editing part. I love writing. I love creating the content, and then I don't want to do. It's like I want to start it and then not touch it again or not even see it.
Okay, so talking about editing is a good
Yeah.
fit for you then.
Editors will be probably the first person that I hire.
Now, do you do much editing yourself? Do you use Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere?
I don't do a lot of editing. No.
So my advice will be to learn it, kind of develop your style of editing, and then when you hire an editor in the Philippines, they'll pick it up, and that way you can just best oversee and know. You can kind of have creative control over that, but yet
What I've done in the past is that I use references, so people that I like or inspire me, and I use that and kind of like send it to, at this point, like my best friend, and he'll edit whatever I have. But that's a good point. So learn them first. That will be your first advice. Learn them first, and then create my style.
And the great thing is, I mean, $450 a month, in the month, that's a lot of videos that they could create. Even if you're filming a vlog and it takes a full week of editing, that's going to be an amazing episode, right? You're only paying $100 or so for that episode. So even if it doesn't turn out right, but chances are it'll turn out pretty good, or there'll be a place to grow from. So it's a real affordable, safe way to hire somebody else to do your editing.
Perfect. So where do we find I'm not sure. I forgot if you mentioned this
Yeah,
in the beginning of the video.
virtualassistanttool.com.
Okay.
A friend of mine, John Jonas, created this website, and now I believe there's a couple 100,000 Filipinos that have submitted and created their profiles there that are hoping to work for Americans. And so you can go through and just really narrow it down. I'll put the link down below for that virtual assistant tool, because you can just go and search and find the exact skill sets you're looking for, and then you just contact them directly. So I don't work through an agency. Most times when you hire somebody in another country, you go through an agency who then marks up the price. So instead of paying, we'll just round it to, instead of paying $500 a month, I would pay $1,500. $1,000 of that would go to the agency, and they only pay the $500 to the person. Right. So this way, you get to hire somebody directly.
Right. Skip the middleman. So who was the first person that you hire? And as a YouTuber, what are the what 3 people or 2 people should somebody hire first?
Yeah.
To save a lot.
Well, my
of time?
first person is a funny story. So I'll share that. Let me answer your other question first, because then we'll end on a funny failure. Okay. An editor is a good place to start. Also, somebody that can manage YouTube, that's got design ability with the thumbnail, that can do your description and kind of schedule things out. Those are the 2 people that I would, if I were kind of building my team from scratch, definitely start with an editor. And then as they're editing and you're learning the ropes of YouTube and kind of managing that, then turn that over to a kind of call them your YouTube project manager or something like that. That's what I would do.
Perfect.
Okay, funny story.
Yes.
I was still an employee. So this is going back over a decade. I was still an employee. This is going back 9.5 years. I was doing telemarketing, but I also, for the same company, had an independent contractor position writing articles. And the company, that they would do article marketing, and they would pay me $10 or $12 per article that I would write. So they'd give me a topic, and I'd write the article, and they'd pay me $10 or $12. So I learned about hiring people in the Philippines. So I hired a writer that I would give the topic to. She would write the article. I'd proofread it, correct a couple things, and send it in. I'd get paid the $10 or $12, and I'd pay her $2. And eventually got a system going where she was writing all the articles, and I was making a pretty good spread, being able to write a lot more, but actually not doing the writing myself. So the reason I say that this is a funny failure is I stopped doing quality control, and I just wasn't careful, and she started taking shortcuts. Instead of writing, when she did her research on the different topics, she would just take a paragraph here, a sentence here, and just pieced it together. And there was less grammatical errors, but she was using other people's content.
Writing, yeah.
And so when I went through and kind of did a copyright check or whatnot, I just found that it was basically plagiarized content in these articles. And the previous 50, I counted, it was a nice round number, if the previous 50 articles had been that way, that I had already been paid for. And so I was really nervous. I went in the next day, went to the CEO of the company, and because I didn't want to have them catch me, I went to them and said, hey, this is what I've been doing. I hired someone in the Philippines that they've actually been writing the articles for me, and this is what happened. And the guy just laughed. He thought it was so funny. But he says, I'm not the decision maker on this. You got to go talk to your supervisor over the articles. And he was a young kid who was kind of a punk, and he was not happy with me. So he said, he gave me permission to rewrite the 50 that I'd already been paid for, but I was not allowed to write any more articles after that.
Oh, no.
And, I don't know. I don't think the person that I hired was, doing it maliciously. But I fired her. I could have been probably more patient and talked to her, did you know? Anyway, so that was my first person I hired, and it was.
So it's a lesson. Don't hire.
Definitely.
Do your own writing.
Well, I would say that there's a right way you could do that. In fact, I would encourage. I just learned that, outsourcing, there's a lot of possibilities. And within a few months of that, I had quit my job, had my company, and got up to a team of 10 employees on my web design company, and was very, very successful. So yeah, highly recommend hiring people in the Philippines.
Perfect.
So my hope is that this video was helpful for you in understanding what a great opportunity it is to hire people in the Philippines. And I'm curious, there's probably a lot of questions that you have about that, like what's holding you back from taking that step and hiring an assistant in the Philippines. So go ahead and comment below, and I'll make another episode and answer your questions.